Hi, I'm Em, and this is Fangfaria. Today, we're talking about the demonisation of dentistry. The demon dentist, the dreaded dentist. Oh, no, Doc, I really hate the dentist. No offence. We hear it all the time, and it's such an ingrained thought or attitude towards dentistry and dentists. Here in New Zealand, another one that you hear is about the murder house, and that's what the kids used to call their school dental experience, which was a bit different over here than it was in the UK. But just continual negativity towards the profession, towards what we do, general suspicion in terms of honesty, which I guess is surprising. I mean, you would think that the whole point of being a professional or being part of a profession is that it could be trusted, but I don't know, somehow we became, and this is another stereotype about second-hand car salesman, but we became the second-hand car salesman of medicine. We became the Del Boys of medicine. And I'm not quite sure how it came about, because, fear of going to the dentist, it just seems to be something ingrained, that even when it's not a service that patients are paying for. So in the UK, doing my training, the patients we had at the dental school didn't pay anything. It was all free of charge. A lot of free treatment within the NHS in the UK, certainly for kind of under 18s and various other groups. But you still saw fear amongst those patients and just a general distrust and not want to be there. So whilst the money side of it doesn't help, it doesn't explain it either. So whether it's kind of a deep-rooted fear because the mouth is a very personal space, a highly innovated space that I guess survival-wise, without our teeth, it would have been more difficult to survive in terms of eating and communicating and socializing and all sorts of other things, but it's not really explained. So I went on a bit of a deep dive into all things kind of dentistry in the media, thinking of, we can all think of the movies that come to the top of most people's heads are Marathon Man, which is an older movie now, but it's got a torture scene in it, taking teeth out. Horrible Bosses is another one. Little Shop of Horrors, The Hangover, all these things where a dentist is either dentistry or the process of dentistry is either outlaid as kind of torture. And in fact, there is a horror movie called The Dentist. Or the dentist is portrayed as a sadistic narcissist with very little moral compass. Or they're portrayed as just a bit simple, I think is probably the best way forward. Not saying not intelligent, but just a bit nothingy and a bit like they're there because they weren't intelligent enough to be a doctor or something along those lines. And that's generally a theme throughout all the movies and TV that I could kind of find exposure to. And whilst it doesn't help and it just kind of amplifies existing stereotypes, again, it doesn't really explain, it just doesn't explain this kind of I hate the dentist scenario. Interestingly enough, when I put into Google bad dentist, because why wouldn't you? All that came up was kind of, all the questions that kind of came up is, how can you tell if your dentist is bad? Do dentists lie about cavities? Do dentists purposefully damage teeth? Why do dentists push crowns? Can I sue my dentist? What can I do if a dentist messed up? So I know I put in the search kind of bad dentist, but there's a lot of negativity out there, and almost kind of forums on comparing and reinforcing that same view. And, kind of blog sites, 12 warning signs of a bad dentist. Even on a dentist sign, there was a good versus bad dentistry piece. And that really annoys me, because I think there's enough kind of bad talking, bad mouthing of dentists without us doing it to each other, which doesn't help the profession. And I think I'll talk about it in a different episode. But it matters the words we use and the way we talk about dentistry and other dentists and other dental professionals, because when you look around in the media and film and what friends are telling them, that they're not getting the right answers there. We need to role model it from our end. Is hopefully provide a great experience, but talk positively about dentistry. And I think that's probably the only way we can really start to see any change. But it is hard, because the game's kind of rigged against us. For whatever reason, we seem to be fair game in the media and like the published press kind of media. I couldn't find an awful lot of headlines. They tend to come and go and disappear, and some of them get retracted, because quite often it's not unusual to see a headline that is, dentist ruined teeth, practice here, blah blah blah, and they will name the dentist, they'll name the practice. There won't be any kind of clinical backing or evidence. It will just be hearsay. But the damage that gets done to that practice and that dentist's reputation, let alone, as we know, the mental health side of things in terms of how long these things take to resolve, how we tend to, or the people I know who have had kind of complaints or things highlighted, tend to over-catastrophize, because we're busy thinking the worst-case scenario of being struck off, of being sued, of being all these sorts of things. And it keeps us up at night at the best. And it sees people leave the profession, or it's cited in reasons for suicide. So it has a huge mental health implication, yet it seems to go unchecked, and these articles don't seem to be held to account. So if you're lucky, there'll be a small piece the following week retracting it or apologising it, but by then it's been done and it's been read. This kind of came to a fore recently in New Zealand, because we're just changing our alert systems. We're coming up to as a country kind of a 90% vaccinated kind of level, and we're about to change how we view the risk of transmission of COVID, the levels of risk of transmission of COVID from patients, to looking at them as either low, medium or high risk. And even before that came out, we've kind of had talked about whether or not we wish to see vaccinated patients and where we stand in terms of refusing treatment and those kind of things. Well, anyway, there was even before this kind of came to a head in terms of within the dental community, there was a practice up north somewhere that had just put a sign in the waiting room that basically said, unvaccinated patients will still be seen, but will be seen at the end of the day, and there will be an extra PPE charge because here in private dentistry we certainly haven't got any of that funded through anyone, so it isn't an additional cost. And basically it was the same kind of criteria that you would, and quite a sensible criteria that you would put on any high risk patient in the practice, in terms of kind of having them in the practice when there were least patients and staff around, and cross-infection guidelines to kind of match. And this was photographed and put on social media, and this dental practice had death threats. Or the dentist had death threats. The practice was threatened to be burnt down, and the police were brought in. And this wasn't over refusing to see an unvaccinated patient. It was about putting in place cross-infection control guidelines and the cost side of it that was involved as well. And suddenly it got blown out of all proportion, flown, kind of went around the web everywhere, and had people from all corners of the world joining in their horror and disgust at this. But again, just another open dentist bashing that's having severe mental health knock-on effects and repercussions for that dental team, that practice owner, and that community. And I don't know when it stops. I mean, we as a profession, I think, are pretty good at, if we read something like that, we will complain about it, but then it's already been done. Where's the accountability before that? And it's not that medicine's immune from this too. It just seems that dentists are just the easy target. It was something I just wanted to reflect on. It's something that we have to work against, because what we find then is we're having patients coming in with all these negative preconceptions that we're having to undo to get even up to kind of a baseline before building levels of trust and things like that. It's probably a main driver of complaints, because again, it ties into that kind of trust and liking the person that you're working with or having treatment from, that we're starting on that negative point. So hang in there. My positive psychology tip for this one, or stress management tip for this one, I guess, is recognizing what you can and what you can't control. So things we can't control is what our patients coming in with in terms of what they've been exposed to before they see you, what their preconceived ideas are and what their thoughts are around dentistry. Things we can control is making sure that their experience within our practices and with our treatment and the way we communicate and the way we talk about dentistry is nothing but positive. And it's not that one experience is going to change that, but if we can kind of keep making those differences and making those changes, then hopefully we can make a change overall. I think it's worth looking at the way we think about dentistry and dentists, because although we are them, we've also been exposed to a lifetime of the same influences and the same media stories as everybody else. That it's important, the words that we use when talking about dentistry, and I think it's important that we don't agree and join in with the putting down of dentistry or other dentists, because if we don't agree and we question it or ask further, say, what's your experience been, we can start to diffuse these things at a very base level and hopefully make things a little better. So don't worry about the things you can't control. Identify the things you can control and or influence, and make headway there. Just whether it's being the positive response to the negativity your patients bring in, be that their fears and anxieties or their offhanded comments about hating you. I used to say something to my patients in the Navy because I could get away with it and I outranked them. But they would say, "Oh, I hate the dentist," and I'd say, "Oh, that's all right. I hate patients." I have to take a deep breath to not say that today, and to behave, because a bit of humour does brighten my day, even if it's at the patient's expense. So no, I do have to remember that sometimes whilst what the patient might say to me is on the borderline of acceptable behaviour, I still have to be professional on the receiving end. Doesn't mean I can't think about what I might like to have said later on. But behave I shall, as that's something I can control, and would urge you all to do the same. So thanks for listening as always. Find me on Facebook or on Twitter as Fang Farrier, and catch you next time.